We hear about Lakeland, Florida quite often on this program. Crossroads founders David and Norma Jean Maines have made it their warm weather retreat, along with some of their family and friends. Carol Kent and her husband Gene, founders of the nonprofit organization Speak Up for Hope, moved to Lakeland 7 years ago for a very different reason. It's great to welcome Carol back, and we're introducing you, Carol, maybe to some for the first time. So first of all, tell us what that big move from Michigan was about.
Well, Moira, it's always great to be back on 100 Huntley Street, and it is an honor to see you again. But we had something catastrophic happen in our family. We raised an only child, Jason, who was a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. And the year after he graduated, he was in Orlando, Florida, where he was in nuclear engineering school. Joined a great church and met a lovely young woman there. And we got one of those calls saying, "Mom and Dad, I'm in love and I'm getting married next Friday." Well, we had a beautiful wedding on a picture-perfect day, and there were two little girls in this family already, three-year-old Hannah and 6-year-old Chelsea, adorable little girls. And so we became grandparents on the same day we became in-laws. And those were really special times. And during that first year of marriage, there were a lot of allegations of abuse about the biological father, who was trying to get unsupervised visitation of these little girls. And our son began to unravel mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And 1 year into their marriage, we got one of those middle of the night calls telling us that our son had been arrested for the murder of his wife's first husband. And a lot of people have read my book, When I Lay My Isaac Down, on what happened as Jason went through 2.5 years and 7 postponements of the trial, and he was eventually convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. So life has taken a different turn than we ever envisioned. And we have watched God be faithful in the middle of dire circumstances. And almost 7 years ago, we moved to Lakeland in order to be close to Jason, to visit him regularly. And that was a very precious time for us to be able to see him on an ongoing basis.
And of course, you're not just there visiting Jason. God has turned this catastrophe into a rippling blessing into the lives of many others. Inmates, families of inmates.
And what the enemy meant for evil, God has used for good. And our hearts grieve for the family of the deceased. I think whenever there is violent crime involved, there are so many hurting parties on both sides of every crime, and oh, how we ache for them. But we know that God does not waste our suffering. And Jason would tell you today, I began to make an idol out of my ability to protect my girls instead of entrusting in God alone to be their protector. And he said, I was wrong, and I'm paying a huge price for it. And in the DVD series on Between a Rock and a Grace Place, Jason shares from his letters and talks about finding contentment with this little lockbox where all of his personal possessions have to go. He has taken more than 500 men through a Financial Peace University course.
He's teaching
inmates how to budget and balance a checkbook. And he's had a biblical counseling class. There are a group of 12 inmate friends of his who are believers, and these men fast and pray for each other's needs and for the needs of each other's families. And we call our Sundays there at the prison Church of the Razor Wire, because that's where we really connect with Jason in that visitation area and with some of his friends.
I'm looking for the name. There it is, Boxes of Hope.
Boxes of Hope. Yes, we actually, through Speak Up for Hope, the nonprofit organization, work with church women's ministries groups to fill boxes of encouragement for wives and moms of inmates. And Bibles are put in there along with comfort items for women, worship CDs. And women will say, oh, it feels like this is the first time I've gotten a gift from my incarcerated family member, and this has blessed me so much. And the women who fill those boxes write letters telling these women they are being prayed for as the box is being filled. So once again, we just see God at work. Well, when we moved to Lakeland now 7 years ago, our daughter-in-law came to us, and she had been through the 3 hurricanes that hit Florida, 3 of the 4 hurricanes that hit Florida the year before, and they caused massive damage to her home, and something in her spirit broke.
Oh.
And unless someone has waited in line to go into a maximum security prison, sometimes up to 2 hours, they don't know how devastating that can be, week after week, month after month. And in Florida, that can be in blazing heat, or it can be in torrential rain. And she had 2 little girls to bathe and dress, and these little girls were growing up. And then when we moved, they were 10 and 13 years old. And
now we have pictures.
Oh yes,
I
we
think
do.
Of the
we do.
Progression through the years.
From when they were 3 and 6 years old when we met them. Little Hannah's on the right and Chelsea is on the left. Hannah has a strong will, and Chelsea would like to grow up to be the princess of everything. And then the year of the hurricanes, there they are at 13 and 10. And we did not know that year April would leave the state with the girls. And she came to us, and she's just, something in her spirit broke with all of the pressure of mold setting in, and there was roof damage, and we just felt something in her spirit break. And she said, I need to move out of state. The girls need a more normal life. They need church on Sunday. They need soccer on Saturdays. And that was the last we saw the girls for 6 years. And we always sent gifts at Christmas time and birthdays, never knowing if there would be a reunion. And I wondered, how long should that go on? And then in September of this year, we were on a layover in Atlanta, and I was staying a few days with friends. Jean was going home. We'd had lunch together, but we'd separated for about a half hour, each going our own ways, and my cell phone rang. And it was Jean, and he was breathless. He said, Carol, I've just gotten off the phone with Chelsea. He said this little voice was on the phone, and it said, Grampy, this is Chelsea. I'm 19 years old, and I'm a freshman at Middle Tennessee State University, and I miss my family. And as a result of this call, Chelsea came and spent Thanksgiving with us. And then she came for 3.5 weeks at Christmas. And I think we have the picture of our reunion at Hardy Correctional Institution. There we are at the prison, and you see that daddy, our son Jason, smiling on the right side. They've had a glorious reunion. And I want to say to every listener in our audience, everyone who's viewing this show, never quit praying for your loved ones.
It's always too soon to give up.
God is in the miracle working business. We prayed for 6 years that these girls would come back to us, and it looks like this summer both Chelsea and Hannah will be spending the summer with us. And we know April is estranged from us right now. She and Jason are still married, but life is hard when you have an incarcerated husband, and it has now been 12 years since Jason's arrest, and it's very difficult. So I encourage people to seek out those in their churches or their communities who have incarcerated loved ones. Pray for them, encourage them. Put a $20 bill in their hands and say, when you visit at the prison next weekend, your lunch out of the vending machines is on us. We really care about your family. But I believe that even though this is not the prayer request we prayed for, that Jason would one day walk in freedom, we believe God is answering in a totally different way and is using what has happened as a platform upon which we can bring him glory. And now we have Chelsea and very soon Hannah coming back, our granddaughters, and we have an opportunity to make a difference in their lives for God's glory.